Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call.
Okay, let me start on one end. Member Boland.
Here.
Member Hill.
Here.
Norma said she would not be here this evening. She's out of town. Chairperson Nisa London.
Here.
Verdugo London, I'm sorry. And we said Donnie Williams, he's not here. William is out of town. And Member Marsh.
Here.
We have a quorum. Thank you for being here tonight.
Approval of minutes, and I understand that we are still pending on the minutes from November 4th, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
All right, moving on, old business. Doesn't look like we have any old business. And new business, so let's just start. The first item is Cool PZ 151211 CUP, conditional use permit requested submitted by Ray and Nathan Hable. Sorry, I don't know how to pronounce it. On behalf of Agronomy Innovations for a medical marijuana cultivation facility located at 1325, 1329, and 1333 West Industrial Drive in the Coolidge Industrial Park, assessors parcel number 209, 25, 0160, and 209, 25, 0170.
Okay, thank you. And for the record, we have Member Williams with us, so thank you for being here tonight. This item, as you've mentioned in your opening comments, is a request by the Agronomy Innovations group. Ray Halby, I think it's Halby is the pronunciation of their last name. The property that we're talking about this evening is actually located in the Coolidge Industrial Park, just south of Industrial Drive, and immediately to the east of the two concrete tilt-up construction buildings that were actually constructed by Mesa Fully Formed. As, for everyone's benefit, the aerial photograph here before you can see, here's Kenworthy Drive, Coolidge Avenue. If you head south on Coolidge Avenue to the entrance to the industrial park, just south of our wastewater treatment facility, at the very end of the cul-de-sac, there are two large buildings that are almost mirror images of each other. Currently, Mesa Fully Formed occupies the building on the west side, this one here, and right now the Agronomy Innovations has a medical marijuana cultivation facility in this building. That conditional use permit was previously approved by the Planning and Zoning Commission following the approval of the state law that allowed for cultivation and dispensing of medical marijuana in the state. And so, by the way, in the way of history, when the law changed, basically the Department of Health Services, I believe, DHS, is the state office that oversees the whole medical marijuana law. And basically in the state of Arizona, they have these different zones, and in each zone, every zone is allowed one medical marijuana dispensary. And in Coolidge, we had a medical marijuana dispensary that the Planning and Zoning Commission reviewed and approved, and it's actually in the same industrial park in this area here where you have those three metal buildings that are parallel to Kenworthy right across the street from Bright International. So we do have a medical marijuana dispensary. The Planning and Zoning Commission looked at the city code, looked at the ordinance that the council approved or adopted following the enactment of the law, and the grow facility is here. We had to come up, when I say we, the city and all cities in the area had to come up with a zoning code in order to permit the medical marijuana cultivation and dispensing in accordance with what the voters approved in the state of Arizona that was being administered through the Department of Health Services. The company that we approved the conditional use permit for before, Agronomy Innovations, are currently in the process of buying this building. I don't think they own it yet. They are in the process of buying this building, which is on its own separate lot from the Mesa Fully Formed owners. They have now expressed an interest to acquire this property, and you can see on this property there are 3 buildings that are on here. There's some graded roadway surfaces, no real improvements to the property other than these buildings and some retention. The history of this site is that the city sold this property to a company called Re-Veg Services. They were going to produce a product that's used to absorb oils, things you put around the dry wells, the straw that is actually in these socks. They use it for siltation dams, and they were actually going to manufacture that product in these buildings, but they never finished the buildings and never actually got that business started. They've owned that property since I think about 2000 and I'm trying to remember 2007 or thereabouts. Don't quote me, somewhere in that area. Well, Agronomy Innovations has approached Re-Veg Services. They're going to acquire this property from them, of course, subject to approval of conditional use permit. And so that kind of gives you a history of the area. When you review a conditional use permit like this at the Planning and Zoning Commission, you always go back to the zoning ordinance and you say, okay, does this proposed use fit in the zoning district? The answer to that question, it is a permitted use in this zoning district with a conditional use permit approval by the Planning and Zoning Commission. And in the medical marijuana ordinance that was adopted by the mayor and council, there are several standards, development standards that have to be satisfied in order for a company like Agronomy Innovations to do medical marijuana cultivation on this. They're not going to be doing dispensing because we already have a dispensary. It's a different company altogether. This is only medical marijuana cultivation. And they are actually cultivating for another dispensary. I think every cultivator has to have a dispensary associated with it that they're cultivating for, and they can better explain that to you tonight. But we looked at the zoning code, we looked at the conditions, the development standards. We, as a staff, feel that the property is zoned appropriately for the intended use. We do have in your packet all the kind of an overview of what I've just discussed, as well as a packet of information that was provided to the Planning and Zoning Commission in your staff report from Agronomy Innovations that explains what they're doing, why they want to do this on this property, and basically gives you a good overview of who they are and what their intent is, and some good exhibits. You can see that our ordinance says that these types of facilities have to be a certain distance from residential areas, from churches, from schools, and the exhibit that's in this packet kind of illustrates that this is an area that meets those standards as well. Our recommendation for you this evening is for approval of the conditional use permit, and and the general conditions that we're talking about tonight are generally applied to every conditional use permit. You recall when we do a conditional use permit, it's done by resolution. The resolution is in your packet, and for the benefit of everyone here, I will go ahead and read the findings, or the bottom of the resolution. It says should you make these findings, the Planning and Zoning Commission says the site for the proposed use is adequate in size to accommodate the use. All yards, spaces, parking, loading, and landscaping are deficient and must be brought into compliance with city code. There's no paving out here. Those improvements were never completed as part of the Re-Veg Services. They never occupied it. So they have to bring those requirements up to code if they're going to occupy this facility and expand on it. The site for which the proposed use relates to streets and highways are adequate in width and pavement type to carry the quantity and kind of traffic generated by the proposed use. This use won't have any more traffic than any than any of the other industrial uses that would be permitted in this park. Probably much less, actually. Proposed use will have no adverse effect upon abutting property. It's adjoining a use that does the same thing, so there would be no adverse impacts. Proposed use is in conformance with the general plan, and the conditions stated in this approval are necessary to protect the health, safety, and general welfare. And the Planning and Zoning Commission, the City of Coolidge, if they approve this conditional use permit request by the applicant, there's a condition under 2A, the medical marijuana cultivation facility must be in conformance or compliance with all state, county, and local requirements, including but not limited to building and fire safety codes. That's just a given. You know, we just put that in as a condition, but that's a given anyway. Then in the line number 3, under the resolution, the Planning and Zoning Commission of the City of Coolidge, should you approve it, would approve it subject to the following general conditions. The first one is that the right to use an occupancy permit shall be contingent upon the fulfillment of all general and special conditions imposed by the conditional use permit. The right to use an occupancy permit shall be contingent upon a valid license to cultivate marijuana issued by the Arizona Department of Health Services. And they did provide me recently a copy of that license, and they can talk about that this evening for you if you'd like. That all the special conditions shall constitute restrictions running with the land, successors or assigns, that all conditions specifically stated under any conditional use shall apply and be adhered to by the owner of the land, his successors or assigns, that all the special conditions shall be consented to in writing by the applicant, that the resolution granting the application, together with all consent forms, shall be recorded at the Pinal County Recorder, and that all requirements relating to the site development, parking, landscaping, drainage, etc., shall comply with city code prior to the issuance of a certificate of occupancy and operation of the site. And those are our conditions that we have recommended in the resolution. Should you approve the conditional use permit, and the applicant would have to sign off on this, the Planning and Zoning Commission chair, as well as our city attorney, then this would be recorded. I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have. The applicant will probably want to spend more time talking about their activity there.
Would you come to the podium, please, and state your name and your address?
Happy to. Hi. Good evening.
Good evening.
My name is Ray Halby. I'm the Director of Operations for Agronomy Innovations. Give you a little background about us. This company was formed by my son and I. We came to Coolidge. I grew up here in Coolidge. I kind of told you guys this is my first conditional use permit. Let me tell you what we've done since then. You guys awarded us our conditional use permit September 14th last year, or I'm sorry, 2014. In that time, we've built a cultivation, a world-class cultivation that's attracted a lot of buzz in the industry. So far, we've brought 13 jobs to the community. Since our last build-out, we have our second phase build-out is actually in planning review right now. We're currently in the process of building a scientific laboratory, a chemical processing area, and a products line that we're going to develop that is kind of eaten away at our 30,000 square foot facility, and hence the reason we're here today. Okay, we partnered with a company called AltMed North America in March of 2015 because they shared the same vision. We wanted to become the premier medical cannabis company in the state by growing, manufacturing, dispensing, and developing innovative cannabis delivery systems of the highest quality. We received our authority to operate, like Rick said, January this year. We're all very excited. We have a laboratory and a staff that I kind of spoke of. I have scientists, I have doctors on my staff. I have Dr. Valerie Riddle, who today she's under contract with she's the medical officer in the Division of Microbiology and Infectious Diseases at the National Institute for Health. I have a scientist, Christopher Wiskowski. He has 4 PhDs in chemistry. He's my chief chemist. We're looking at bringing the and introducing the biomedical protocol into the cannabis industry. We have air showers in our facility. I've extended numerous invitations to come out and see what this should look like. Any preconceived notions of a closet grow or some of the stuff you've seen on TV are far beyond what we have set up here. And we're looking to continue to do this. We have several different delivery methods that we're developing. We're developing a transdermal patch, kind of like the Nicoderm patch. We're developing a nebulizer, an inhaler, a dissolvable strip, a lotion, a balm, a lip therapy, a sports gel. We have a no THC sports gel that's all CBD derivative of the plant that we're actually marketing to the NFL because their players won't come up positive on a drug test for using it. But so they get all the medical benefits of the plant without any of the psychoactive benefits. We have 24-hour armed security at our facility. They walk the perimeter. They monitor our cameras. I currently have 52 cameras on that small facility, and we're looking at putting probably 150 on this next piece of property. We have cinder block fencing around this current property, and we're looking at fencing the entire property. As Rick said, DHS has some outlines that we have to adhere to. One of those is that this facility is fenced and monitored. So that area will be all fenced in. All of our employees have key card access. So our facility is not open to the public. We don't have, kind of like Rick said, we have very little traffic. Just my employees. All of them are key card access in. A lot of them are limited access throughout the facility. Again, I said we brought 14 jobs. Currently, I have 10 more after my second phase is completed. I have varying pay from scientists to security guards right now. All who say, I have a security guard right now that says he makes $4 an hour more than he ever has doing security, and he was a security guard at B of A. Permission for this CUP would allow us for our rapid expansion and mean even more higher paying jobs for the area and boost the local economy and local merchants. So far, we've spent upwards of $8 million. Like Rick said, we have a purchase price on that building we currently occupy of $2.2 million. This piece of property has a purchase price of over $1 million. I have a $2 million laboratory that I'm building in phase 2. I have a $1 million build out that we've already completed. So we're well vested in the community, and we hope to continue this. Yes, sir.
Have you sold anything yet?
As a matter of fact, because our ATO just got approved in January, no, sir. No. We won't have anything until, I believe, April.
As I recall, our first go-around, your dispensary was in Holbrook.
Yes, sir.
Is that still the case?
No, sir. That deal fell through. And one of the things we found in this industry, there's a lot of, let's just call it snake oil in the industry. It took us a long time to find a suitable partner, and that's why from September 2014 till just January, it took us to find a suitable partner, create a deal that we're all amicable with, and move forward. So now we're ready to do that.
Where's your next dispensary going to be?
Our dispensary is in Tucson. It's the Rainbow Collective out of Tucson.
Is any of your new facility going to be growing or just?
All of it will be growing. Growing and manufacturing and processing. The way the law is written, no products can pass state lines that are infused with any type of cannabis. So the intent is my lotions and creams come from my manufacturer. They'll come to my facility. We'll infuse that product. We'll package that product, and then we'll distribute it through our dispensary in Tucson.
So what kind of revenue can City of Coolidge realize out of this? As far as city
I
tax?
can tell you that the city of Coolidge has already realized a lot of revenue. I mean, local merchants, all my people live here in town. We all shop in town. In fact, I just saw Mary Shope the other day. How do I say it? A lot of this revenue is coming back to you in the form of taxes.
And no sales tax?
No sales tax from us because we're not selling anything.
How often do you renew your license?
Annually.
Annually?
Yes,
Okay.
ma'am.
Okay.
We have biannual inspections that we have to pass through DHS, similar to the cooking industry, kind of like they come in and inspect our kitchen and make sure cleanliness and all that. But they have access to our security cameras. Our security cameras are all uplinked, so, Big Brother's watching, and that's okay. That's all part of the process.
Excuse me, Rick, question. If for whatever reason they weren't to pass an inspection or their license was not renewed, are we made aware as a city of that, or is that information that he would just have to give us?
I can tell you that this industry is heavily regulated and monitored. I don't know. I've not talked to DHS about their notification process. Should they lose their license, it's something I can find out. But
Not that I wish that upon
yeah.
you at all. It's just part of the
Sure, part of the
conditional use,
regulatory.
and I didn't know if.
it's again, and we put in there the standard requirement that they have to comply with all state, federal, local, any of those requirements. And so if they're required to have a license and we find out through some source that they are operating without the appropriate licenses and approvals, then they're in violation of the city's zoning ordinance. We can,
But at this point, we don't have a direct dialogue with whoever the license,
I have not had a direct dialogue with them, no.
as far as, okay.
I
And I know
yeah.
it's such a new industry that it's,
Well, it's comparable to daycare centers and other child care facilities, nursing home facilities. They're required to be licensed by the state of Arizona. There's an agency that monitors and checks them out. We don't have those people. And so we rely on those agencies to make sure that these operations are functioning appropriately. Our job really is to look at the land use through this conditional use permit to see if this location meets the requirements of zoning, and that we make sure that they adhere to the requirements, general development requirements of the city ordinance that was passed by the mayor and council, which they are doing in this case.
Also, ma'am, I might add that not only is our certificate annually renewed, but each individual has to maintain their dispensary agent card, which is also annually renewed. So at any given time, I mean, we all had to pass an FBI background check to get that. And then at any given time, say you have an incident, they can pull that card and you're no longer an employee. So that's also a check and balance.
How tall a fence do you have to put around that thing? Instead of a cinder block fence?
There is no regulation for fence size. We're anticipating putting an 8-foot.
sir, if you'd like to come to the podium, because we do record, so thank you. And just introduce yourself, please.
My name is Nathan Halby. As of right now, there is no regulations from DHS for fence size. The city code is up to an 8-foot fence, so we are planning on putting an 8-foot fence with secure razor wire surrounding the entire perimeter of our property.
Yes.
I would like to talk to that, just to kind of correct that. Razor wire fencing may not be a suitable product in the city, so we'll have to talk about the razor wire. We don't want facilities to look like prison facilities here, so there may be another appropriate method of security. One thing I'd like to also mention is, we have a very close working relationship interdepartmentally with the city police department and our chief, Jim Malinsky. And certainly he is aware of the conditional use permit requirements. I know he's very aware of these gentlemen and their industry. I know that they've extended an invitation to many of us to come out there. I have not been there. I would love to. I was talking to a councilman tonight that I think would like to go out and look at the facility as well. And the thing that I wearing the economic development hat that I wear also in my capacity, is that the thing that really kind of attracts me about this site and proposal is that they are talking about potentially, I don't know when, but their thought of manufacturing, not just growing medical marijuana, but manufacturing biomedical products potentially out of this facility is something very attractive. I mean, that's manufacturing, and so, I think that would be very exciting if we could introduce some manufacturing of products outside of the medical marijuana to bring even more jobs and notoriety to our industrial area.
What I was getting at, a regular 6-foot block fence. I mean, smash and grab, dude.
Well, you can put a medical marijuana dispensary in Coolidge with a conditional use permit, even though we have one here now. Before this was considered, there was a site considered over at the Safeway Plaza. And, talk about convenience of going in and stealing. But there are requirements that say in our code that say you have to have, if you're adjoining another property, you have to have a proper wall that can't just be broken through sheetrock, kicked through the sheetrock, and you're in there.
There's cinder block wall. What's going to stop a pickup or a car from driving through it? I mean, they do it in Phoenix every day.
Yeah, we have, that's what kind of, in front of this facility, you've got a gate, and you have a wall around the perimeter that's probably no more than 6 feet high. There's nothing that prevents people from doing illegal.
They're inside of a building.
And they're going to be in buildings here too. Yeah, they're going to be inside.
That you're in right now, isn't it?
Yes, sir.
Isn't it a tilt wall building?
Yes, sir.
Okay,
Yeah.
you're not going to drive a pickup through that.
Through their bay doors, they could. Those are not made of concrete. There are lots of bay doors on the whole back perimeter of this. And everything that they're going to be introducing on this site are within enclosed buildings. The dispensary, these are metal buildings over here, and I know you have a wall around the perimeter on the north-south, but our code doesn't require that they be in metal or concrete tilt-up construction type of buildings.
It doesn't, but they are now, right?
They are currently, yes.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But you're not going to drive through a metal building over there either. What I'm getting at is that on the new part that you're putting up, you're talking about a cinder block wall, right?
Perimeter.
Yeah, for the perimeter. Okay, what's the buildings on the inside made out of?
Those are metal buildings.
Are they metal buildings like?
Yeah, they're no different than a lot of these other. Most buildings today in our industrial areas are all metal buildings, Butler buildings.
Everything's going to be grown on the inside of those buildings? Is that what you're saying?
What's that?
Everything's going to be grown on the inside of those buildings?
We will have a greenhouse that is made of polycarbonate and concrete structure that will be put on this site potentially if it's approved through planning and zoning.
Yeah,
So that will only be accessible through the metal buildings. It will have no outdoor accessibility to it.
I want to really make that clear. Tonight's the use question, but they will be coming in with, if the use is approved for this location, they will be bringing, like he said, greenhouse facilities. They're still in buildings. They're not allowed to grow medical marijuana outside in the open. So they will be in secure buildings. Now, nothing is perfectly secure, but they do have their cameras, they have their alarms, they have their guard, they have all the things that should ensure that these things are appropriately secured and monitored 24 hours.
I have a question, Mr. Miller. Is this part of this industrial park, because it happened before I got here, but was that part of a city-owned parcel that was zoned and developed as industrial property? Or is this all originally private land that was actually just zoned for private individuals?
I believe, and Tim, you can correct me if I'm wrong here, but I believe the city owns all the land around this property, and this was land that the city owned and then started selling off. We sold the land, the city sold the land to Mesa Foley Farm, to Felix Construction, which owns this piece. Actually, Mesa Foley Farm still owns the 2 lots immediately to the north of the end of the cul-de-sac. They're actually producing out of this building right now a shower panel product. They opened that facility a couple of years ago. They were not operational during the downturn in the economy. Of Of course, you know that we have Bright International here, one of our largest employers that has since acquired additional acreage immediately to the west of their current site. So they own all of this land plus some additional land that the city sold to them south of their facility. So yes, the answer is it was a city property. We've sold these off. The city still owns a piece here at this location that we believe has potential for more industrial expansion in the area. I've been talking to Mrs. Cassidy, the owner, I talked to her on the phone the other day. She's the one that her and her husband built the Mesa fully formed buildings. I talked to her about working with the Arizona Commerce Authority to attract some additional industry on this property to the north, and she's pretty excited about that idea. So,
what percentage of that does the city still own, the original?
the city only owns one lot in here now that's part of the subdivision. This one right here that's just north of the word industrial. Tim, is that correct, that one there? But the city also owns, like I said, all of the cultivated, the land around here, which is in cultivation. We lease that to.
Is that Kenworthy, or are you talking?
Yeah, actually, everything south of Coolidge Avenue over to Skousen, and then all the way down here, all this farmland down to Martin. This land is leased to a local farmer. They actually, you can see it's all in cultivation. He uses our treated effluent to grow non-edible crops, or the cotton generally on these properties, or alfalfa, non-edible. And so the farmer's doing us a great favor in taking excess effluent and rather than and that effluent's a little more affordable, obviously, than the CAP and other water sources. So the city does own a large piece. We own this property here, which used to be, you can see the outline of the old ball fields. That was kind of a softball, baseball complex that the city closed down primarily because they were concerned about some soil contamination. There used to be an old Coolidge airstrip here. I'm telling things that you know more about than I do, but I know there was an old Coolidge airstrip here. A lot of ag planes that came in here and out of here, and probably had some agricultural pesticides spray that was introduced in some of the soil here. Not a good place for a park, so the city closed that park down. The city sold this piece to CAVIT, Central Arizona Vocational Institute of Technology, and they've since expanded, and we hope that we can continue to work with them to expand even further, either to the east or eventually over here to the west.
Gentlemen, do you have any objections to any of the conditions or anything that is listed?
No, ma'am.
So we're good?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, gentlemen? Anything else? Got a motion?
I've got one thing about the conditions, and that's that the conditions run with the land. And I think that I prefer to see those with some sort of condition on it, and if something ever did happen to the business, that they changed locations or did something, then that would cease, and a new owner would have to come in and start all over. I hate to see things like that where you never know what the future is going to bring and who you're going to be dealing with in the future, what the circumstances might be, and then all of a sudden you're stuck with something that you've committed to forever. And I think it should be for that use and for that purpose, for that user. And
Unfortunately, the city code is written such that it protects the owner and their investment that they've made on the property. If they put in or introduced several $1 million into this facility already, and if they decided that they wanted to sell this to someone else to do exactly the same use, they would be very probably reluctant, and it probably is illegal to stop them from selling this activity to somebody else that meets the criteria of the state, federal laws, and other things. So I think that's there to protect the property owner and the investments.
Be met at that point and say, okay, you're going to continue with the same business, the same thing. And we did. I've been through quite a few of these where that's the way they've done it. And,
yeah, I would advise against that. I think our legal people would say that you can't do that, that this runs with the land. It's in our ordinance that way. These conditions are in the city's zoning code that are general conditions that are applied to every conditional use permit. That's not something that this commission can change without going to council and asking them to change the ordinance that was adopted.
I want to see that ordinance somewhere, because
Oh,
that really is a hang-up for me.
Yeah, it's in, let me just reference it here, and I'll under every conditional use permit for every zoning district. This doesn't just apply to medical marijuana, it's any use that's conditionally permitted. So, there are a lot of other uses in other zoning districts that are conditionally permitted. For instance, auto repair, we've had several of those, daycare centers and so forth. But basically, if you look at under any zoning section for conditional use permits, let me find an example here for you real quick.
Even if they did sell it, or they went out and they wanted to sell it to somebody else, for somebody else to actually raise marijuana or whatever in there, they'd have to go through the state and get the license to do it too. I'm sure the state doesn't let you, okay, I'm gonna sell this, I'm gonna hand off my license to somebody
Correct.
else.
No, it is non-transferable.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
That's right.
So they'd have to go through the whole rigmarole of getting a license to the state, whoever bought it from them or whatever.
Correct. Under Article 19, Administrative Procedures in the City Zoning Ordinance, Section 1902, it talks about procedures for conditional use permit. This is for any conditional use permit. It talks about what they are in general, why we have conditional use permits, that there is an application that's required to be submitted to our office. We go through a public process like we're going through tonight to hear their request. The planning and zoning considerations and findings are listed here in Section 1902C. The section that we're talking about here, it says, under Section 1902, Section C, point 2, point F, it says the commission shall, not may, it says shall, in addition to any other conditions, impose the following general conditions upon every conditional use permit granted. Number 1, the right to a use and occupancy permit shall be contingent upon the fulfillment of all general and special conditions imposed by the conditional use permit procedure, that all of the special conditions shall constitute restrictions running with the land and shall be binding upon the owner of the land, his successors, or assigns. And it says that all conditions specifically stated under any conditional use permit listed in this chapter shall apply and be adhered to by the owner of the land, his successors, and assigns. That all the special conditions shall be consented to in writing. That's what this is here. And that it shall be recorded that the resolution granting the application together with the all consent form shall be recorded at the Pinal County Recorder's Office.
Mr. Hill, might I add that much like Mr. Williams said that there's a process to go through with DHS to get a license, the state is not issuing any more licenses whatsoever, and the likelihood of me surrendering my license is very slim.
Because you'd even have a hard time selling it even if you wanted to. For the money that you got involved in it.
It's going to take a while to recoup, sir.
To another person like you that's gonna do this, so you kind of,
We're committed.
yeah, I mean, yeah, you're not, you get so excited now, you can't turn back. You gotta
No.
go.
And there's no turning back. We have a long road to go. We have a lot of discovery yet to discover here.
Okay, do you have a motion?
I move that we approve Cool PZ 15-12-11, conditional use permit.
Second.
That's the resolution that,
So the resolution is Cool PZ 16-01.
yes.
I second, yes.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed?
Thank you.
Okay, Cool PZ 160101, a rezoning request initiated by the City of Coolidge for approximately 27 acres of land located near the intersection of Tucker Avenue and Highway 87, changing the zoning from general rural to general industrial, described below. All of blocks A, B, C, 43, 44, 45, 52, and 53 of Randolph, Arizona, according to the plat of record in the office of the county recorder, Pinal County, Arizona, recorded in Book 2 of Maps, page 5. Accepting therefrom lots 18, 20, 22, 24, 26, and 28, Block 53, and also including all adjacent right-of-ways for alleys and roadways as shown on said plat, and also including a tract of land bounded by the south by south row line of Randolph Avenue, bounded by the west by the east row line of Fifth Avenue, bounded by the east by the Southern Pacific Railroad, and bounded by the north row line of D Street as shown on said plat. Accepting therefore any portions currently within the corporate limit of the City of Coolidge, Arizona. It's easier to look at.
Yes, it is.
I was gonna say, I didn't quite get all that.
Seriously.
Thank you, Madam Chair and members of the commission. That is a very difficult description to read, and it's much easier to look at that's why Tim Hansen does such a terrific job on these exhibits for you. He's a great asset to the city. But let me just kind of start this conversation by explaining that what we're looking at tonight is a request that's been initiated by the City of Coolidge. We have been working with Stinger Bridge and Iron. As you know, Stinger Bridge and Iron has been in business here for some time. Their business initially started here along the west side of Highway 87, which is not currently in the city limits. That's currently in the county. We've been working with this company and this property to the north up here along 87, just south of Randolph Road over to the railroad tracks, is where you've seen so much activity occurring over the last few years. Stinger Bridge and Iron, they do a lot of their smaller components and welding. You know, they're obviously they build deck joints for interstate highways. They build large steel girders for high-rise buildings, for bridges, and they're very well known throughout the country and possibly even the world. I don't know if they have any outside of the country, but Mr. Carl Douglas started this business, has since been bought out by Tommy Fisher with Fisher Industries, a very large industrial company. They have sand and gravel operations and a multitude of other construction-related activities. They expanded onto this property, and you can see out there today that they're building a very large building in accordance with a major site plan that the Planning and Zoning Commission approved a few years ago, I think now. They installed a batch plant up here, and they're actually introducing another product on this site, which are the pre-stressed concrete girders. So that opens up the market. Not only are they manufacturing iron girders, but they manufacture concrete girders. They have a couple of other facilities. Since this photograph was taken, this whole property is completely different. They also recently acquired the property here in red. This property in red is not currently in the city limits. They have requested that the city annex this property. We recorded a blank annexation petition. The council held an annexation hearing recently on this annexation proposal, and in the coming weeks we will then obtain a signature on that annexation petition from the owner, Tommy Fisher, with the Stinger Bridge and Iron, to have this property incorporated into the city of Coolidge, along with the property that's immediately to the north. So that's the current city limits boundary. This would be the new city limits boundary. This is the community of Randolph to the south. The community's been here a long time. A lot of history in Randolph. There are some churches, some other, there's some storage buildings and activities of somewhat of a commercial and quasi-industrial nature along Highway 87. A lot of single-family homes in the area. I think there may even be an old park of some sort that was introduced here years ago. I don't know if the county did that. I'm not sure about the park history. Maybe some of the residents can explain that. I don't know exactly how that was built, but the proposal tonight before the commission, really, you're a recommending body on this zoning application, which is being introduced by the city. Your recommendation has to be forwarded to the city council on this rezoning proposal. What we are proposing is it's currently zoned county agriculture. I'm sorry, general rural. General rural, let me kind of go to the next slide here. This kind of shows the rezoning area here. You can see this is the general plan. We'll go one more here. This is the rezoning area, again highlighted in this pattern. This is all county. This is these little blue areas along Highway 87 are general CB2, general business in the county. The rest of this area is general rural, this brownish color, including their existing manufacturing plant. For some reason in the county, it's zoned general rural. I'm not sure why the county has it that way, but I'm not the county zoning administrator. You can see that this property around it to the north and to the west on both sides of the railroad, all zoned general industrial I2 for manufacturing. And so we're asking the commission to approve tonight, and that will eventually go to council, is to rezone this pattern that Stinger has bought to conform with this general industrial zoning to allow for them to expand their activities into this area. They have a proposal to build some large concrete pads out here that they can operate on. There's going to be a couple of large buildings in here that are parallel to one another just south of this line. That would be paint booths, and they also have another manufacturing building, and we'll probably introduce some other activities on this property related to their manufacturing process. If you go out there today, I was talking to Mr. Michael Tucker. You go out there today on the site in about this location, Stinger Bridge and Iron acquired some very large concrete. It was formerly in a parking garage, very large, 40-foot wide by 10-foot concrete aggregate. They almost look like big beams. They're part of a parking structure. And what they would like to do, and they're coming in here talking to us about bringing those in and using those as a screening wall on the south side of the property. So they'll introduce that through a permit process kind of along the south boundary to provide some screening along the south property line. Back to this kind of, I think this is our general plan, right? General plan. Our general plan exhibit. The voters approved the general plan 2025. This purple area is designated in our city general plan as future industrial and manufacturing. It does show this area, which is currently residential, in the same designation. That doesn't mean that Randolph goes away. Randolph exists. It's going to exist as long as Randolph wants to exist as a residential area. But in our general plan, it is all designated along the railroad tracks and along Highway 87 for future industrial. So perhaps someday owners, or as this owner did, may want to sell off property for future industrial activities and uses. That would allow them to consider that. But no one is proposing, that this is broken up into multiple ownership in this area. I don't know exactly the number, but there's probably, I'm guessing, at least 100 or so individual lot owners in this area. This is Bateman Street. And Stinger recently paved Bateman as well as their parking lot in this area. They paved it. They worked with the county to do that. The city, when we do the annexation, there's only a portion of Bateman here on the very east end of the property that would be introduced or a part of the city limits. The rest of Bateman in this area would still remain in the county. If you look at the plat for this property, there are several, the existing plat, there's several right-of-ways that run east-west and north-south, rights-of-way and alleyways that are part of the original subdivision plat. And Stinger will look to the mayor and council in a separate application if this property is annexed. They'll request that some of those right-of-ways that are only on plat be abandoned for their expansion onto this property. Currently, those roadways do not go anywhere. They don't exist. They're just paper.
So on this current property, there are no homes, no one's living on it.
Correct.
It's
This is all
just
vacant.
platted, but not.
Yeah, if you kind of go back, everything here is all vacant. Stinger actually has been using a large part of this property for their, they have a lot of storage on this property. They've had storage on it for a number of, I guess, since they've been doing this activity up here. That's why they wanted to buy this, and they're buying the rest of this, but it's all vacant. Stinger also bought this property and cleaned it up. It was not the best shape. I think the residents in the area will see that, they do use this this property. That little. No, actually, looks like a little house, kind of a Pueblo style or Adobe looking house.
Parking on it, though.
They have some parking in this area. That's correct. That's all in the county. That's not part of this annexation because there's separate property owners that own around this as well. This is a one-owner annexation request. Stinger's the owner. It's contiguous to their existing site, and so that's why it's stair-stepped. Okay.
I'd like to open it up. If anyone would like to come to the podium, introduce yourself, address, please, and
Good evening,
hi.
planning and zoning members.
Hello.
I'm James Hartfield, address 1120 East First Street. It's my mother dear's property, Nelsine Hartfield. I had to talk to Rick. Good to see you, Rick.
Hi, James.
Last week, and I kind of asked you. I asked the same question I asked you. And asked him how would this zoning affect property, the property tax, and also would it also. Well, that's our main concern, property tax, and then the pros and cons of this here rezoning concerning those properties in the Randolph area.
Well, I can't answer the property tax.
I can do that for you this evening. This annexation request will have no impact on your property taxes on property that you own in the Randolph area. Your property is assessed for residential activity and uses. The only thing that would impact your property taxes is if you would make improvements to the property, if it were reassessed, or if the tax levy at the county went up as a result of the school districts or some of the other taxing entities increasing their mill levies. But this annexation and this request will have no bearing or impact on your taxable value or how much you're taxed. It will impact Stinger Bridge and Iron. If they buy this property and it's annexed, this property then becomes part of the city, and the city will introduce a mill levy that's not currently assessed to Stinger Bridge and Iron for city services. The city will serve this property with police and fire protection, and when it's in the city, obviously that a little additional increment of tax will come into the city that they don't currently pay. If they don't annex it, in fact, they'll pay less in the way of property taxes. Stinger Bridge and Iron will. From a city standpoint, one of the positive things with this whole project is they come in and pull building permits to build like the very large building up here that they're building now. The city collects impact fees. We just issued a permit the other day for their second sequence of their building expansion up here, and they paid a little over $44,000 to the city in impact fees for the square footage that they were introducing on that site. Construction sales tax is something that the city benefits from when it's in the city, when they pay their, when people pull permits and they do construction, there's construction sales tax that they have to pay. Wages in employment, those are all benefits. People, Stinger they're putting a lot of people to work in the local community that they pay federal wage rates. Stinger Bridge and Iron, at the mayor's breakfast the other day, we talked about, and it's pretty common knowledge that they got a very large contract in California to build the structural steel for the Gerald Desmond Bridge. You can look at that online or Google it. Gerald Desmond Bridge. Yeah, the Gerald Desmond Bridge. It was featured in the Engineering News Record recently by a writer. The Gerald Desmond Bridge. This bridge is about a $1.2 billion project. Stinger Bridge and Iron got a big contract to be a subcontractor to fabricate the steel and to do the steel erection for that bridge. And that contract is a pretty sizable contract for the company. Again, those kinds of those are all positive from a community standpoint. Now, you asked a legitimate question: how does it impact the neighborhood, and what are the pros and cons of industrial next to your residential community? You're surrounded by industrial activities. Stinger's already here doing their welding. Stinger's to the north. You have the Trans-Canada facility over here. So this whole area is surrounded by industrial. A lot of that is because you have the Union Pacific Railroad that runs up and down here. Stinger will eventually take advantage of that Union Pacific Railroad. They'll bring a spur into this property, similar to what Heritage Environmental does to the south. That's also in the city of Coolidge. There's a rail spur that comes in over here into the Western Emulsions facility. I know you all have some questions and concerns about Western Emulsions. That's not an issue tonight. This is Stinger. We've been talking to Western Emulsions. We had a really long conversation about that in a recent discussion at the Planning Commission. Our mayor and I, the mayor and I went out and met with Western Emulsions representatives. They're trying to address those issues through technical, through technology. Their plant manager out there, I know, has invited the residents in the area to call them and let them know when the odors are. They're trying to find out what's the real cause and the timing of that. I know that those conversations have taken place in the community, but that is not an issue tonight. That's a separate matter altogether. That doesn't relate to this property at all, or this request. I don't know James. I've known James a long time. I have a great admiration for James. He served in the Casa Grande Board of Adjustments when I first moved to Casa Grande in 1990, and I've known him a long time, and he's a fine gentleman. I appreciate you being here tonight, James.
That's pretty much it. I think there's one other question, but I think you already answered it. Like the value of the property, is it more likely to increase it than versus decrease the value of the property with this sting operation if it comes in?
Yeah, and that's a question that I'm not a real estate expert, and I don't want to predict increasing or decreasing. I'll tell you one thing, that the values in the area, again, it's surrounded by industrial. Ken, you're probably better capable of talking about values, but I don't believe that this activity will impede or bring values down. I don't think it's going to necessarily increase your values either. I don't know that there'd be an impact one way or the other as a result of this rezoning decision. The future of Randolph, is in the hands of the community. There's some property owners in there that take wonderful care of their properties. There are a lot of properties in Randolph where people don't really care, and it shows. To me, those activities have more of an impact on valuation than what's being introduced here. I think that, in your own community, there are property owners in the county that don't maintain their properties properly. And I would hope that the community recognizes that. It's important to the city as well. This is a gateway to the community. love to see property owners improve their property and clean them up. And, there's a lot of activities in this area that probably violate a lot of county code requirements from a cleanliness standpoint and storage. I not long ago called on a property that was creating a salvage yard. It looked like they were a chop shop and they were taking cars all apart. It wasn't screened and it looked bad. Those things, I think, have more of a detrimental impact on values than what we're talking about here. When Stinger is done, they do have a requirement to landscape the highway frontage. That'll be a nice addition to the area. They are doing their best to keep the dust down and again, introduce jobs to the area.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you, James.
Board and Rick,
Thank you.
appreciate you.
Uh-huh.
See you again, Rick.
Good seeing you too.
Is there anybody else that would like to take the podium?
I don't know why Stinger's not here tonight. I know I talked to Mr. Tucker the other day. I don't know why they're not here, but I think I've given you all the explanation. We are we're the applicant here, so to speak. The city is initiating this request, not, they're asking for the annexation.
Just to be clear, so it has yet to be annexed?
Correct.
Are we in the process of that now?
In the process of annexing, so your decision tonight is an advisory recommendation. Since it's still in the county, this property isn't going to be zoned based on your recommendation tonight. If you recommend approval of this, it's not going to have the effect of rezoning. The council has that ultimate decision, and the only way they can decide that is if they proceed with this annexation. So the annexation, what you'll see, I believe it's scheduled for February the 22nd at the city council meeting. So James, if you want to take note for that, but city council on that evening will consider several items related to this case tonight that you won't see. The first would be the infrastructure and services plan for the annexation area that we're required to do as part of the Arizona revised statutes. When a city annexes property, we have to demonstrate how we're going to provide services to this area. The second thing they'd do is they would entertain and approve the annexation ordinance in accordance with the Arizona revised statutes. The third item on the agenda would be the review and the approval of your recommendation tonight, should you approve the rezoning, to rezone this from county zoning to I-2, heavy industrial. All those act on the same agenda concurrently in that order.
Do you have a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve, was it APN? Well, that's APN number, Cool
It's-
PZ 160101.
I second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed? Okay. All right, on to our third Pool PZ 160102 CUP. It's a conditional use permit submitted by Candace Sutherland Mott on behalf of Verizon Wireless for placement of an antenna array on top of a light pole in the Shopes IGA parking lot located at 1940 South Arizona Boulevard on parcel number 204-142200.
Thank you. And by the way, it's kind of nice to have a planning commission meeting. I've been missing you. I'm glad that we're having a meeting tonight.
Must be Valentine's Day.
It must be
coming up.
close to Valentine's Day, and I'm Cupid, right?
Yep.
The request before you, as you've introduced tonight, Chairperson Verduga Linden, is that this is the Shopes IGA here as you're coming in on Arizona Boulevard, Martin Road, the Shopes IGA parking lot. The Galloping Goose, the famous Galloping Goose that just was recently part of Bar Rescue, which should be televised here in the near future. And by the way, if you've not been in there, it's pretty just an unbelievable change inside that place. Across the street, you have the Hohokam RV Park. And what is being requested tonight is a cellular array on top of one of the Shope IGA's existing light standards that are in the parking lot. Our city zoning ordinance requires conditional use permit for any wireless communication facilities. And kind of to introduce what this would look like, we're not talking a huge, gigantic cell tower. You're seeing more and more of these introduced all over the place to enhance cellular service. Oftentimes they'll want to come in and either put this kind of an array on a street light or maybe some lights at a ball field or buildings that have enough height. And so for the purposes of illustrating, here's the existing light standard in the Shopeside GA parking lot. All they would do is put an array on top of it, much like they're seeing in this exhibit. So very, very non-obtrusive, provides enhanced service to the area as for signal. I think we're going to see more and more of these requests. I'm almost a little bit embarrassed that they have to come in with such a request because it is a simple matter of adding to an existing light pole, but because the way the ordinance is written, they do have to come in and we have to notify property owners and go through this process. The proposed installment on this light pole, it's the installation and replacement of the 29-foot 4-inch light pole and installation of a mounted lessee antenna array and the addition of a low-profile SunWest equipment cabinet. You'll see a little equipment cabinet down a pedestal at the bottom here that they're illustrating here. We have no objections. We believe that this request is appropriate for the area, not going to negatively enhance property values or impact properties in the area. And we are recommending this evening that the Planning and Zoning Commission approve the conditional use permit for a small cellular wireless facility on top of the existing light pole in the Shopes parking lot. Excuse me. Findings are there. The following general conditions as apply to every conditional use permit are there. Those are straight from the code. And we also have the resolution that runs with the property for for a cellular facility here as well.
I think your description is wrong.
Under what?
Under the resolution, like that first paragraph. The City of Coolidge granting conditional use permit for church use in an agricultural.
Yeah, you know what? How many times have we looked at this, Tim? No, it wasn't what was wrong before, but
Now it is.
it is. And what we need to do is we need to change that conditional use permit for a wireless facility. That's the problem of cutting and pasting on these resolutions. And and I looked at this with Tim 3 or 4 times. Those things just go. So yeah, we made an error there. So thanks for catching that.
On this antenna, does it directly affect us at all in Coolidge?
Affect us?
Yeah, like is it going to improve any of our cellular service in Coolidge, or what? How does that all?
Is it for cell phone use or for?
Tim's better at this, but
Is it Big Brother? It's data.
Increase data speed. They will put more.
How heavy is that thing?
well, I can't answer that. But they do have to have a building permit. They have to get and like I said, they're replacing the existing light pole with a light. Yeah. It'll be. They'll get a permit to install this on an appropriate base, and that will be engineered to withstand winds. So we don't want this thing falling over on a car. But thank you for asking that question. It is a replacement of the light standard with a pole that's about the same height, only just you can see it'll still be a light. They'll still have a light on it, much like you see these other lights. But this will be an entirely new pole with a little cabinet at the base. And it is, I wish I could answer your technical questions on service, but.
Down there this afternoon and tap on that pole.
Oh yeah, no, it'll be.
No, it's not gonna happen.
No, they'll put in a new pole, and they will get permits to do it. They'll have to run, the proper wiring and thing from the cabinet through the pole, or up adjacent to the pole up in here. So.
Okay, as long as it's gonna be a new pole,
Yes, sir.
because that one there isn't gonna go anything.
No, you're absolutely correct. Thanks for pointing that out.
It's gonna be like a little sail up there. When that wind comes through there, it's gonna take it right down if they put it on top of the pole that they got now.
Yeah, you're right.
We okay, gentlemen? A motion?
And I'm sorry, I need to make that correction. We can do that administratively. We'll have to do that and get your signature and the applicant's signature on this. Thanks for catching that. That's what you're here for, to keep us on our toes, and we appreciate your catches.
Any member of the audience that would like to speak on this subject? All right, do you have a motion?
I'll make a motion to pass Cool PZ 160102.
Resolution number?
Yeah, what's the resolution number?
16-02.
16 dash. So you would say this.
Oh. Yeah, with the resolution number Cool PZ 1602.
I second it.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed? All righty, moving right along. Do we have any reports?
You know, it's been a long day.
Manager?
You know, let me just report briefly, and I know everybody wants to go home, but I am having such a good time here in Coolidge. I not only in my capacity as growth management director, but as the president of the Coolidge Economic Development Committee, my involvement with the Artisan Village of Coolidge and airport management and several things that we're doing here. I'm really feeling good about the community and the things that we're seeing that are being introduced in the way of new and projects that are being redeveloped, the new ribbon cuttings that we've seen at McDonald's and at the Federal Credit Union, the Napa store, Circle K, that will be coming in. They're looking probably towards the middle of March, first part of April, to get started on that project pending approval of ADOT and how long it'll take to get through ADOT, but we're going to facilitate them and hopefully get that project going soon. The opening of the new Tequila Jacks, that they had a grand opening the other day, ribbon cutting, and then the Galloping Goose. The list goes on, and we're working with some pretty good prospects, trying to introduce some more activities. I think the activity at Stinger Bridge and Iron is great for the community from an industrial job creation standpoint. So there's a lot of good things going on in Coolidge, not so much in the way of residential. I think that will eventually pick up, but we are seeing some good things happening, and it's good to be a part of all of that. I don't have anything else to report.
Very good. We're awfully quiet today. All right. Call to the public. Is there anyone out there that would like to add or subtract at this point? All right. Well, do I have a motion to adjourn?
I move we adjourn.
Second it?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Let's go home. Good night.